All right, so get ready, because today we're going deep on a story that's pretty wild, 1 Samuel 19.
Yeah,
It's got everything.
it does.
Jealousy, loyalty, close calls, even a little bit of,
Divine intervention.
divine intervention. We're talking King Saul, David, and a whole lot of drama.
What's really interesting about this story is that it's not just good versus evil.
Right.
It's really about how complicated people are
Right.
and ambition and how loyalty can pop up in the most random places.
Okay, so just a quick recap. We're back with King Saul, and he is very jealous of David.
Uh-huh.
Remember, David's the one who took down Goliath.
Right.
And now Saul is convinced that David wants his throne.
Saul is totally consumed by this jealousy. It's like clouding his judgment.
Yeah.
He's obsessed with getting rid of David. He sees him as a threat everywhere.
And this is where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
Saul's own son, Jonathan, steps in.
Right.
He's best friends with David.
Right.
And he's torn
Yeah.
between being loyal to his father and what he knows is right.
It's a tough spot.
Yeah, classic dilemma. And Jonathan handles it with incredible courage.
He does.
He warns David about Saul's plan, gives him a chance to escape, and then he goes to his father, and he reminds him of all the good that David has done for them, for their kingdom.
I bet that was a tough conversation.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
But Jonathan is so eloquent and so logical that he actually wins Saul over,
He does.
at least for a bit. Saul swears he won't hurt David, and you'd think that'd be the end of it, right?
If it was an easy story, maybe.
Yeah.
But, people's feelings aren't simple, especially when power and jealousy are involved.
Yeah.
Saul being paranoid doesn't just go away.
And of course it happens again.
It does.
Saul's jealousy comes back. He actually tries to kill David with a javelin.
Wow.
Not once, but twice.
Really?
I wonder what Jonathan was thinking watching this all go down.
Oh, it must have been so hard for Jonathan to see his dad like that.
Yeah.
But it also shows a lot about Jonathan.
Yeah.
He doesn't give up on David or his father.
So what happens next? David has to run.
He does. And this is where Michal, David's wife,
Right.
shows how brave and quick-thinking she is.
Yeah.
She helps David get out through a window, and then to stall for time, she uses a trick.
This is my favorite part. Tell me more.
Okay, so think about how stressed Michal must be. She takes this idol, puts it in David's bed,
Wow.
makes it look like he's asleep. This saves David,
Right.
but it also shows that you can be brave in lots of ways.
Yeah.
You can stand up to a king
Yeah.
or be clever and get out of a bad situation.
Talk about thinking on your feet.
Yeah,
But Saul doesn't give up easily, does he?
you're right.
He's relentless.
David goes to Samuel, tries to hide out in this place called Naioth in Ramah,
Right.
but Saul is obsessed,
Uh.
sends people to get David. This is where things get really crazy.
Yeah. Here comes the divine intervention.
Exactly. Saul's men get to Naioth.
Uh-huh.
They find all these prophets. Samuel's there too.
Yeah.
And they're suddenly overcome by the Spirit of God.
Wow.
Instead of capturing David,
Right.
they start prophesying.
Whoa. Talk about a twist.
Yeah.
Saul's plan backfires big time.
Uh-huh.
So does he give up?
Not Saul. He's stubborn,
Yeah.
maybe a little delusional.
Okay.
He sends more men, and the same thing happens. They're overwhelmed by God's Spirit.
So what does Saul do? Does he finally see that he needs to leave David alone?
He does not. He goes himself
Wow.
to Ramah to capture David.
Really?
But even Saul, the king,
But,
isn't immune to this power.
I bet this is where things get good.
It is.
Yeah.
Saul gets to Ramah and falls into a trance and starts prophesying too,
No way.
alongside Samuel and the others.
Like the universe is yelling at him.
Yeah.
Back off. What does it all mean?
I don't know. It feels like there's a bigger message here
Right.
about the limits of what people can control,
Uh-huh.
the importance of listening to your conscience,
Yeah.
and maybe even how a higher power works in the world.
So Saul, the king, ends up prophesying. That's crazy.
It's a powerful scene for sure.
Yeah.
Makes you think, beyond just what literally happened,
Yeah.
whether as God stepping in
Right.
or some psychological thing. It shows you that people can't control everything.
Right.
Even a king
Yeah.
at the top of his game
At his most powerful.
can be overwhelmed by stuff he doesn't get.
Do you think Saul ever had a moment where he was like, wait, am I the bad guy here?
Hard to say, but the story leaves it open.
Yeah.
That's what makes it so interesting. It's not just history. It's
Yeah.
about being human.
Uh-huh.
The good and bad inside us all.
So let's talk about that bad side.
Okay.
Saul's jealous, but it's not just about David, is it?
Yeah.
It's about his own insecurities, right?
Totally.
He's afraid of losing power.
Saul's a perfect example of what happens when you're ambitious,
Right.
but you don't care about being good or knowing yourself.
Yeah.
He's so focused on staying king that he forgets what's important.
Like what?
Justice, compassion, loyalty.
And it's ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
The more he tries to hold on to power, the more he pushes away everyone who could help him.
Exactly.
His son,
Right.
his people, maybe even God.
It's a warning, for sure.
Yeah.
It tells us that being a good leader isn't about being bossy or controlling.
Yeah.
It's about serving something bigger than yourself.
But we can't forget about Jonathan and Michal in all of this.
Oh, absolutely.
They're both so brave, but in different ways.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Jonathan is about moral courage. Standing up for what's right, even when it's hard.
Yeah, even when it means going against authority.
He risks his relationship with his dad, his own safety.
Right.
Because he believes in David.
Yeah, and what David stands for.
Exactly.
And Michal, she's all about practical courage.
Yeah.
Doesn't hesitate. Thinks fast.
Uses her smarts.
Yeah, to protect David.
She's a great example of how being resourceful and quick-witted can be just as strong as being physically strong.
Right. She outsmarts Saul.
She does.
Using her brain and what she knows about him.
She's clever with that idol.
Yeah.
She knew that even though Saul was losing it, he still respected religious stuff.
Makes you think, what if Saul had listened to Jonathan?
Yeah.
What if he'd seen David as a friend instead of an enemy?
That's the sad part of this story, isn't it?
Yeah.
All those missed chances to come together.
Yeah.
To understand each other.
To choose love over fear.
Right.
So for us, living now, what can we learn from this old story?
That's a good question.
What speaks to you the most?
I think it reminds us that even when things are really tough, we have a choice.
Right.
We can be scared and paranoid like Saul, or brave and kind like Jonathan and Michal.
And maybe we can learn to trust in something bigger than ourselves.
Right, whether that's God or a moral code or just the belief that good will win in the end.
Well said.
Thanks.
That's a perfect lead-in to our last part, where we'll talk about how these lessons apply to our lives today.
Sounds good.
I'm excited. Stick with us. So we've talked about the drama, the jealousy, those close calls, and even God stepping in. But now, the real question is, what does this ancient story mean for us today? It's easy to look up to Jonathan and Michal, but how do we be brave like them in our own crazy lives?
That's a great question. And, I think being brave isn't always about doing something huge or fighting battles.
Wow.
It's often about the small choices we make every day.
So you're saying it's about those little moments where we choose to do the right thing, even if it's hard, or be kind, even when we don't feel like it.
Exactly. Like Jonathan, he wasn't just brave when he stood up to his dad. It was about always choosing to be there for David, even when it was tough. It was about telling the truth, even when it was risky.
It's like working out a muscle, right?
Yeah.
The more we do those little brave things, the stronger we get.
Right, and then we're ready for those bigger challenges when they come along.
That's a good way to put it. And it's true for Michal, too. Her bravery wasn't about being physically strong. It was about being smart, using her head to get out of a dangerous spot.
Yeah.
Like that saying, where there's a will, there's a way. We can't always control what happens to us, but we can control how we react.
And sometimes the bravest thing is just not giving up hope.
Yeah.
Keeping believing in a better future even when things look bad.
That brings us to trusting in something bigger than ourselves. That can be hard to grasp, especially in a world that's all about, doing things on your own.
I get that. But think of it like this. Trusting in something bigger doesn't mean you give up on doing your part. It's realizing that we're not in control of everything.
Right.
There are things we just don't understand. And letting go of that control, having faith that things will be okay, can actually be really freeing.
Like taking a deep breath and not trying to control every little thing?
Exactly. And, the story of Saul, David, Jonathan, and Michal, it reminds us about forgiveness, too.
Oh, how so?
Well, Saul, he makes some bad choices out of fear and jealousy, but the story doesn't say he's totally bad.
Yeah.
It leaves room for him to change, to become better.
It reminds us that we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
We can all hurt people, even the ones we love.
The important thing is to learn from it, say you're sorry, and try to do better next time.
And to offer that same forgiveness to others.
Yes.
We never know what someone else is going through. Being understanding can make a huge difference.
It can.
So as we finish our deep dive into 1 Samuel 19, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away?
I hope they remember that even when everything's crazy and uncertain, There's always room for courage, loyalty, and hope. We get to choose how we act, to stand up for what's right, and to believe in something bigger than us.
That's beautifully said. This has been an amazing journey exploring this story with you.
It has.
And for our listeners, we'll leave you with this thought. How can you be brave like Jonathan and Michal in your own life? And what does it mean for you to trust in something bigger than yourself, especially when you're facing tough times or feeling unsure?
Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.